Hi everyone, I'm Troy Martin, TM Fitness. Today we're going to be talking about non-linear weight loss. Why non-linear weight loss? Because weight loss is not linear. So if you followed the other videos that I've done on macronutrients and on energy balance, your head might be spinning around a little bit from all the maths and all the numbers. The reason weight loss isn't linear is because as sound as the mathematical equations are, maths doesn't specifically relate to human metabolism. Human beings and human bodies are very, very complex. There's lots of things that affect those mechanisms that maths can't predict, which is why the equations that we use are called predictive equations, because they literally can only predict. It's an educated guess, if you like. When you apply the principles, they're pretty good. You just have to understand variables and how to manipulate those. Right, so the common doctrine is if you create an energy deficit of 500 kilocalories per day, you will create 1 pound of fat loss per week. That's brilliant. But it doesn't work that way, does it? No. 500 kilocalories a day or 3,500 calories for the week should create a weight loss of 1 pound of body fat, except it doesn't. I'm not going to get into the complexities of the 3,500 kcal argument. Yes, it's flawed, but yes, it does work. However, so if you apply that principle, you should expect to see a very linear and straightforward weight loss pattern like that. So if this is your starting weight and this is your target weight and this is the number of weeks you have to lose that weight. So if you want to lose a stone of weight, that's 14 pounds, which is 14 weeks. So if you create a 500 kcal per day or 3,500 kcal per week deficit, then you should see your weight loss drop down to your target weight in those 14 weeks, right? Nah. What you're more likely to see is this. So you'll see that the line here is very jagged. So you're going to get peaks and troughs and plateaus, and your weight loss will fluctuate and go up and down. And it will do that so long as the overall trend is downwards. That's fine. You've got to remember there's a difference between weight loss and fat loss. So your scales will measure your weight, but they're not necessarily measuring the amount of fat loss. I've had it with clients where they've been dieting for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months, and their weight has barely moved. And they get very, very, very frustrated if they're solely focusing on their weight. Fortunately, I usually get my clients to take other measurements as well. So in addition to the scale weight, you take site measurements and pictures. The factors that will affect your weight loss include water retention, glycogen retention, hormone balance will affect these things, environmental factors will affect these things, sleep, stress, infection, illness, all those things will affect your weight, but not necessarily your body fat. So the reason a person's weight may not change over, let's say, a 6-month period, the weight barely changes, but their body changes. And if they're not taking pictures and site measurements, they won't see that change, because it will happen very, very slowly over that, let's say, 6-month period. So if the only variable that they're looking at is body weight on the scales, they're going to get very, very frustrated. But after 6 months, if they look back and they can see the amount of centimeters they've lost off their waist, they can see the change in their body shape on the pictures, then they're going to be a lot more motivated to stick to the plan. And one of the reasons that may happen is because they're gaining muscle and losing fat, which means that their weight isn't changing. They're losing maybe a pound of fat or half a pound of fat per week, but the weight isn't changing because they're also gaining muscle. As I say, other things affect that as well. Water retention and glycogen retention. So when you eat carbohydrates, your muscles store glycogen. When you store glycogen, you also store water. Other things that can affect water retention include hormone balance. If you're under a lot of stress, that can cause water retention. If you're not sleeping well, that can cause water retention. Menstrual cycle, I have known it for clients' weight to go up by 10 to 12 pounds in the first week of menstruation, simply from inflammation and water retention and a few other factors, insulin resistance. Understanding these things and understanding that when you see these fluctuations and these plateaus and these spikes, that it's not necessarily a time to panic. Quite often you'll see, particularly with a female during menstruation, that their weight will go up dramatically, but then over the next week or two it'll come back down dramatically as well, as all that water and bloating and inflammation disappears. So it can be very frustrating, but as long as you're not solely focusing on your weight, it gets easier to deal with. Okay, so that's some of the complexities of, you know, weight loss and why it isn't linear. So just understanding that the line won't look like this, it will look more like this, and that's okay. So accepting that, how can we make that work for you so that it's less demoralizing? Because if you have a lot of weight to lose, let's say you've got, you know, 3 or 4 stone to lose, realistically that's going to take you a year, maybe even 2. You know, you don't want to feel like you're just on a diet forever, because that's going to be pretty demoralizing. You know, and you want to be able to have some flexibility in your diet, and you want to be able to have days out and holidays and stuff like that, and not feel guilty that you're breaking the plan, you know. So one way of incorporating that, and for improving like the psychological and emotional levels of adherence to dieting, is to have diet breaks. I mean, the diet break can be as short or as long as you want it to be. So the way that works is you have a period of time where you're on it 100%, and so you're on MyFitnessPal and you're tracking your calories and you're in your 10, 15, 20% a day deficit, and you're losing weight or you're losing body fat. If weight may be fluctuating, but you're hopefully still losing body fat, and you do that for a period of time. I usually like to go with 6 weeks because that fits well with most people's lifestyles. It can be as much as 12 weeks. There's no hard and fast rule that says it has to be, you know, it can be 7 weeks. It doesn't have to be 6 or 12. It can be 6, 8, 12, it can be 10, 7, 5, whatever. So you pick the period of time that you're on your diet and you're adhering to it as strictly as you can. Allow yourself some flexibility in there, but make sure you're in that energy deficit. Then you take a week off. That's your diet break. But that doesn't mean that that's a week of just shoving as much food as you can grab your hands on into your mouth. That's not how it works. You still have to be mindful. So you're not tracking this week, you're taking a break from tracking and being really meticulous and conscientious about what you're eating and sticking to those calorie deficits. The chances are that you're not going to be in a deficit that week, but you're aiming to be somewhere around maintenance. And practice mindfulness. Just consider what you're eating. If you're going to have a meal and you want a slice of cake, you don't want to have that slice of cake on top of the food that you're eating. You have it instead of some of the food that you're eating. So, you know, you might have, think to yourself, okay, I'm going to have a little chocolate dessert with dinner tonight. So I'm not going to have all that cheese in my lunch, and I'm not going to have the rice with my main meal tonight, and then I can have a slice of cake or, you know, whatever. And I'm probably going to be somewhere around maintenance, and that's fine. So you will find that your weight probably goes up a little bit that week, but that's fine. Don't forget, you're probably eating a little bit more food, so there's going to be more glycogen, more water in your system, but that can be a good thing. Some of the physiological adaptations that occur by having a slightly higher calorie intake when you're constantly in a calorie deficit are very beneficial. Not just the emotional side of it, but the chemical, biological side of it, the hormonal side of it. So a diet break has many, many benefits, practical as well as emotional and psychological and biological. So you do your diet break and then you get back on it. So you do 6 weeks of strict dieting or strict calorie tracking. You take a week off where you're a bit more mindful, but you're not tracking, you're relaxing that side of it a bit. Then you come back onto it for another 6 weeks, and then you take another week off. And you do the same again, and you keep repeating that. What you can do is, if you know you have social events coming up, you've got a birthday, you've got a holiday, you've got Christmas coming up, you've got Easter coming up, you can plan your diary in advance to fit your breaks in. So it might be that, you know, you're dieting for 6 weeks and then you take a diet break, and then you're only dieting for 4 weeks and then you take a break. And then you're dieting for 9 weeks and then you take a break. So it may fluctuate depending on what your schedule is, but you make it fit your life. That way, when these social occasions come up, you don't feel guilty because you know you're on a diet break. Just got to still be a little bit mindful of what you're eating so that you don't completely fall off the wagon. You know, you're not just taking your hands off the brake levers and freewheeling down that hill to oblivion. So if we look at the chart here, if we're using this template of the diet breaks, it looks similar to this one, but you're under control now, so you know what's happening. So your weight may steadily descend for 6 weeks, you take your diet break, your weight goes up a bit and then it comes back down, and then it goes up a bit and then it comes back down, and it goes up a bit and it comes back down, but you still reach your target eventually. Remember, it's all about the journey. So if you're solely focused on the weight and not everything else, you're more likely to fail. You need to go back and see the video that I made about goal setting, because it explains all that in more detail. Once you've got the goal setting right, once you understand how calories and energy balance works, incorporating these diet breaks into your weight loss regime can be really, really beneficial, and it makes the whole thing just a lot less stressful. Okay, I hope that was useful for you. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, click the like button, watch my other videos, follow me on Facebook, and I'll catch you again soon. Laters.